Hey everyone, Sketchy here, and this is another episode of Crit Happens, where I tell you my stories and opinions on role-playing games. I was debating on what I was going to talk about this time, and I was kind of somewhere between talking about combat in games, which I do plan to do, but then I was on YouTube, and I ended up watching Counter Monkey. I watched the Prisoner Dilemma episode. And that's what I'm going to talk about, my personal prisoner dilemma. Now, I'm not going to talk about specifically that, but it is going to be a major portion of the story. I'm going to be talking about my first time playing Shadowrun, which is my only time playing Shadowrun. And it's probably still, to this day, one of my favorite games that I've played. And just because of the setting. I love the setting of Shadowrun. Because it creates odd combinations. For instance, my character was named Vladimir Porochovsky. He was a Russian street mage biker gang member. He was all sorts of fucked up. Like, nothing about him made sense. So, the group that we had was my character, Vlad, the street mage. We had Dr. Snacks, the true Emperor, Emperor M, at it again. Dr. Snacks was I believe he was an elf. We didn't really use classes. He was the face. He ended up being the face. The way we played the game is we used the fate system. We used the Shadowrun setting. And we use the Fate system. Online there is a conversion for it called Shadow Fate. If you want to look that up, I'd suggest it because Fate is probably my favorite system, and Shadowrun is probably my favorite setting for a game. So we used that system, and so Emperor M was playing the face. He was basically a doctor who was completely apathetic. And this is where we started making the joke that he is Krieger. And if you piece all of the things together, you'd have to actually play with him, of course. But he ended up basically being Krieger in almost all of his games. And it was one of those minor things that you'd have to pay attention to notice. One of the other players was he played the tech priest. I can't remember the character's name. But he played the tech priest, and he played, I think it was Ethan Carter was his name. Was the name of the character. And he was a phys adept. The interesting thing about this character was that he was supposed to be a phys adept who didn't realize he was a phys adept. Basically, it's this 40-something-year-old guy who has seen a lot of shit. And in the setting we were using, the game we set was in 2049, was when we started. So he was growing up when all of the messed up events of Shadowrun that led to what Shadowrun is today, he was alive during almost all of them. He was alive during the Awakening. He was alive during the Indian Wars. He was alive during, I think it was like Black Friday. No, it wasn't Black Friday. I can't remember the name of it. But basically where a bunch of metahumans were killed. And someone's definitely going to correct me on Shadowrun lore. All I really know about it is what we were told. And a little bit of research I did. The last character was... What was his fucking name? I can't remember. He was the Decker. So, he's just the Decker. He went by Zero Cool was his screen name. And the Decker ended up being a bit of a problem. Not in a bad way. Basically, the issue we had is most of the group was in state. We were living in Alaska. And most of us were going over the same house. But he lived in Texas. Zero Cool's player lived in Texas, so we were playing through Skype. It's one thing if the entire group is playing through Skype. It is a bit difficult with one person who is somewhere else. It sort of runs into the issue with Deckers and Decker-style people, where they have to take a lot of time to themselves. And we understood that. So, to set the whole story up, we kind of need to go to the beginning, because this is what resulted in our prisoner, so to speak. The first session wasn't really what started it. Basically, what immediately happened is Zero Cool was doing some hacking shit. I believe the explanation we gave was he had hacked a game that was owned by As Technology. My friends are... my friend at the time was into My Little Pony. It's its own thing. Whatever you think on that, just leave it. I don't fucking care. Because that's not important. What ended up happening is he hacked a game that was dubbed Pretty Ponies. And it was supposed to be an E-rated game for everyone. But what he did is he hacked it and put penises everywhere. He dubbed the game Pretty Penises. Everything was penises, and there was a joke for a while. There was a joke within the group when we were talking about this, that the unicorns are just running around their own, and then it just drops in their face. So that was that. That was why he was being hunted. He basically fucked up a huge ass technology launch. Like their E3 or whatever Shadowrun's equivalent of E3 would be is just horribly ruined by dicks everywhere. As my players would say, hella dicks. So As Technology is hunting this guy down. And the way we worked it all in is he was being followed. And the person he was being followed by was a little dwarf girl named Cherry. Sounds like a stripper's name. She wasn't, but she was part of a biker gang. Conveniently enough, the same biker gang as my character, Vlad. So what results in this is Zero Cool realizes that he's being tracked. Someone knows he's there. And he immediately just grabs all of his stuff, starts rushing out, makes a big scene, doesn't pay the Matrix bar owner, or whatever, Matrix cafe owner. And so now he has another bounty. Now someone else wants him caught. About the same time, Ethan shows up. His character, who is deeply in debt to the Russian mafia, had to kill one of his spec ops. Basically, he was a spec ops guy. He had to kill his team because they were pulling some My Lai, I think that's the My Lai massacre. They were basically pulling something like that, and he just could not stand it anymore. So he basically there was an altercation. It was like, you guys stop this now, and they said no, we're not going to. So he killed them all, and so now he's on the run. He's heavily in debt to the Russian mafia because they're helping him hide, or for whatever reason. So he shows up at this time because he's tracking Zero Cool as well. It just so happens that at this time, the little neat runs out the bar, and he immediately can tell that's probably the guy. This little shit, I've been told he was here. This little shit's running out. I'm gonna follow him. Not before, however, Cherry runs out the bar and starts following him as well. Sorry. So there's this little following, and I decide, you know what? My character is in an alleyway. Sorry. My character is in an alleyway, and I see this little train of people following. I'm like, okay. So Carter is walking around in basically full Lone Star kit. Not the most stealthy thing to do, but it might be a good disguise. But he's just walking around in full Lone Star kit. So I see a Lone Star guy who is basically the. For those that don't know, Lone Star is the. They're basically one of the law enforcement agencies. In Shadowrun, almost everything is privatized. So Lone Star is one of the private companies. I think they're owned by someone else. And I don't know. So they're basically contract cops, but with actual authority, not mall cops of today. So I see this Lone Star guy following who basically became my character's girlfriend through various means that aren't really important. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna stop that. My character's a mage, so I fling a trash can in front of them. And the Shadow Fate rules don't explain magic too well. We had to look into it a little more and actually go into the Shadowrun books to figure out how spells worked properly. And to this day, I think we still just horribly messed up our spells. But so I fling a dumpster in front of this guy. And we were using, and in Fate, you can use Fate points to change the story. Add an aspect, change an aspect. Basically, you're going to spend a Fate point and something changes. Well, someone thought it would be a good idea to have a couple ghouls having sex in a trash can. I don't know if that's even possible. I don't know if ghouls fully are in Shadowrun. I really probably should read these books that I have lying over in my bookshelf. But basically, these zombies crawl out of this trash can, and they begin to attack us. Unfortunately for them, and luckily for us, we were quicker than they were. I immediately light one on fire, and Ethan shoots the other down. We were told that fires were caused as the one I set on fire ran off into Seattle. So, bad day for those people. But good day for us. Until later. What eventually happened is we tracked down Zero Cool, who was captured by Ethan first. We had separated at this point. Ethan captured him and led him to Dr. Poros Snack's house. This is Emperor M's character. Sorry. Got a cramp. Oh, that's not pleasant. Go. So he leads him over to Dr. Poros Snack's place. Dr. Poros Snacks has set up a little clinic. He's working as a almost legitimate businessman. The issue is he is on the run from Renraku because he was a wage slave, and he left. He was given all this training, given all this technology. He was a trained doctor by Renraku, and he just, I'm not going to work. I'm not going to be here anymore. And he disappeared somehow. So they show up at his place and basically pay the doctor to patch up any wounds they have. I don't really remember if they had any. And let them hide there. Fortunately for them, I found out. Unfortunately for me, I didn't know how to do math that day. What happened is we get our way in, and the way his clinic is set up is there's a door, and then there's another door, and you're in this little box. You can get in the first door, no problem, but to get through the second door, he has to let you through. So we go in, and we sit there, and we're trying to convince them, just give us just give us Zero Cool. We'll take care of him. There's a lot of money on the line here. Just help us out. We'll help you out. And they're not buying it. But eventually, Ethan he's like, you know what? Let's settle this. Let's solve this issue. So I'm imagining my character is just leaning up against the wall, cool as shit, because he is practically perfect in every way, in his own mind. Um, what happens is they open the door, and Ethan has his gun drawn. I believe it is an Ares Super Warhawk is the weapon. He described it as a Smith & Wesson 500 to me, which makes what I'm about to say happened make absolutely no sense, because that gun will fucking destroy you, as I understand. What happens is I try to fling his gun out of his hand, and he tries to shoot me. Not lethally. At least I don't think it was intended to be lethal, but enough to cripple me. We had stunts, which are abilities that you spend a fate point and you get a bonus. You can't just spend fate points to get bonuses. You have to use it to invoke something. At least in how we were playing. I keep feeling... There it is. Excuse me. So what ends up happening is I use my stunt, which was called Astral Threading. It basically is magical bullet time. He uses bullet time. And the way it works is in RP, time to us just stops. And he can pull a trigger 3 times, or I can cast multiple spells in an instant, or just cast a single spell in an instant if that's all I need. And what it does is it gives both of us a bonus. Now, what resulted in this is his score was 1 point above. His roll was 1 point above what I rolled. I forgot to add my bonus from using that stunt. So I screwed myself. I found out like 10-15 minutes later, but it was one of those situations where you're like, if you mess up the math, just own it. Just say, you know what, I messed up. I messed up. You shot me, and that's what happened. He shot me, but he was, because I think I took 7 points of damage, which in Fate can't quite kill you, but it'll do a lot. Unless you're really, really weak, like you have no body whatsoever. But I think I took 7 points of damage, and basically what we decided is the bullet went through my arm somehow so perfectly that it did not tear my arm off or completely shatter the bone to be unrepairable. And so I had a broken arm, and my arm never healed in the amount of time we played this game, because I think we played for about 4 or 5 months, and the amount of time that passed was only like a week and a half. Like all of our jobs encompassed a week and a half, so my arm never fully healed. So I have a massive hole in my arm. Luckily, I'm at a clinic, so I spend all of the money I have on me to pay the doctor to fix me up as best he can. And he does a great job. He's a good doctor. I think that was his highest skill, is medical, or the medical skill, whatever it is. It might just be healing, and I'm retarded, but I think there was a different name for it. So that's the first mission. That's how we all sort of started knowing each other. The next mission wasn't even a mission. I think it's an actual module called Food Fight, and I might be completely wrong, because basically the setup is we are all in a stuffer shack, which is like Walmart crammed into a crammed into like a Chevron or something. That's the way it was explained to us. The way it was explained to us is take all of the things that are in Walmart and cram it down into like maybe a Walgreens size. Guns, ammo, food, drink, everything is there. So we show up there for one reason or another. I think Ethan was doing a job. Dr. Snacks was doing a job harvesting someone's organs, which is perfectly okay to him. Like I said, he was Krieger. And I was going across the street to get something for Cherry, because I lived right across. Like he gave us the address. He's like, yeah, the Stuffer Shack's address is blah 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 blah. And I'm like, wait. And I look at my character sheet because he gave us the addresses because these were actual locations in Seattle, which is kind of interesting. But I look at the address and I'm like, that's literally right across the street from me. And he's like, okay, so how do you get there? I need to go to the store. I'm freaking going to Walmart for one reason or another. My girlfriend's bitching at me to go get her tampons and chocolate, so I'm going to go get her tampons and chocolate or whatever. I ended up never doing that until like the last session. I was just like, here you go. That's unimportant really, but it was kind of a funny thing that we kept joking about it. So we all show up at the Stuffer Shack, and almost immediately there's this woman there, and we're immediately all drawn to her attention to her. Right as there's a massive explosion in the front of the store. Now, I don't think the explosion actually did much to anyone. I think we all rolled pretty well on our saves for that. Or it just was meant not to hurt us at all. But basically, immediately, these 4 people walk in. I think it was 4. Something like that. 4 people walk into the Stuffer Shack. And my mind and everyone else's mind is, oh shit, it's on. This is our first major combat in Fate system and Shadowrun. There's an orc, there's a big ass human, I think that was and then there's a woman. I think it was just another human woman. And that's all we initially saw. And the first thing that happens is Ethan jumps up and just puts 3 shots right in the orc. Not enough to drop him. And me being the elf that I am, the arrogant bastard, I KS him. Yeah, I ignite the guy, which was one of my spells. I light the guy on fire, which does enough damage to make him drop. So there's arguments to this day who actually got the kill. This is also a story of how Vlad Porchovsky became the most badass motherfucker in that group. Bar none, any arguments are false, and anyone who tells you otherwise is a lying piece of shit. But, so I light this guy on fire, and he drops. And right after this, a guy in robes walks in. And my eyes immediately dart to him because I can tell in an instant that guy's a mage. Ethan can tell immediately that guy's a mage because one of his gimmicks was spot the mage. He has the innate ability to be able to tell a mage wherever a mage is. Like, the joke ended up being, he's like, there's a mage. That guy's a mage. That guy's a mage too. You see that guy way the fuck down there? He's a mage. Pulls out a map. There. Right there, there's a mage. That was our joke with him. So he can tell this guy's a mage. And I can tell he's a mage. Everyone else is wounded or trying to escape because they want none of this. So what I do is I see this mage and immediately I'm like, I need to take this guy out. So what I do is I throw one of my knives in the air because if I can't cast spells all day, because in Shadowrun spells cause drain, which can kill you if you cast too much. At least that's what I was told. I could be completely wrong. And if so, Chad, why are you screwing me up? But so I throw one of my knives in the air, and to completely defeat the purpose of using them, I use my fling spell to chuck it at the mage. So kind of like an artillery strike with a knife. And this gets his attention. As it should, because a knife flying through the air out of seemingly nowhere and striking you in the shoulder, it's probably a bad thing. So he walks over to where I am, and he's chanting, and before he gets to me, he casts, I think it was Mana Ball. Basically just causes a big energy explosion, and I resist it as best I can. When he finally gets to me, I think Ethan had been injured enough that he couldn't fight. Like, he was in full retreat mode at this point. He got shot by someone else. And semi-ironically, had his own arm shot. So he was down an arm as well. As the mage comes up to me, everyone else is in full retreat. It's basically now me against 3 other people with support. And I think I'm the most amazing person in the world. And I pull this move where I have knives, a single knife stored up my sleeve at all times, and I whip it down. And before it even hits, I just whip it to the ground. And before it even does, I fling it back up, and I hit the mage in the other shoulder. So I asked my DM, "Is there anything else I can do at this point? I haven't done enough damage to kill him, and I know he's going to hurt me. Can I do anything?" And he says, "Well, in the Fate system, you can use a Fate point to use another turn." I'm like, "Sure, I'll do that." Because I want to drop this guy now. Because mages cause damage. And that's what I want to get rid of. As a mage, I should know this. So what I do is I make a bunch of fancy gestures in the span of a second. And I cross the knives that are stuck into his shoulders and cross them up into his neck, killing him. It's at this time that the goon with a shotgun, who we are told is the ugliest human ever, the orc, looks better than him. And this punk bitch I can't remember her name. Doesn't matter. She's off in the corner. She's off hunting somewhere else. It's at this time that Zero Cool comes in to help us. Sort of. He was in the stuffer shack getting, what are they called? Nerps, I think. Yeah. He was getting nerps, which is some sort of food that I don't understand at all. They're disgusting and they're horrible, but everyone wants them. So he's in there, and what he decides to do is he hacks the building systems, and he decides to shut off the lights. So the lights shut off, and the ugliest human ever decides to, he falls somehow. I don't remember the situation that resulted in him falling, but he falls. So I take this chance to think I'm the baddest motherfucker in the room, which I ended up being, and I go charge this guy. And I attack him. Unfortunately, my close combat is horrible. His is decent, and Ethan's player decided, I'm going to drop a fate point and say, where will you be when the acid hits? Which was translated to, where will you be when the kamikaze hits? I think it's kamikaze. Which is not Jet, as Spoonie mentioned, it's Psycho. Yeah, kamikaze is closer to Psycho than it is to Jet in any permutation. So this guy is now roid raging in my face, and I'm doing everything I can to survive. because the mage thought it would be a good idea to get into a knife fight. Which didn't go so well for me until I found a shotgun. There was just a shotgun sitting under the counter at the Stuffer Shack. So I get it into my hand somehow. I think I magicked it and did some fancy tricks. But I now have a shotgun in my hand, and I just blow out his sides. Part of what came of that is my character's gang, when he was a biker ganger, because his backstory was he was from Denver. He was a biker ganger in Denver, and something happened that forced him to move to Seattle. And his gang was known as the Ironsides. So I would brag about how that guy didn't have Ironsides. Proved it right there, but I do, and I flex my non-existing muscles because I had a body of 0 or 1 or something. I had a horrible body. I think what ended up happening from there is I scuffle with the punk chick, and I think I shoot at her once and I miss. But it's at that time that my character's girlfriend, Sherry, who is not a decker, she's a rigger. Her drone comes flying through the window, takes this chick out, gets her hair caught in its rotors, and I basically threaten her at double-barreled, shot twice, shotgun point. I had no ammo, and no one realized it except me at the time, and maybe 1 or 2 other people who just were kind enough not to say anything. So I'm forcing this chick at gunpoint to surrender, which basically results in me immediately throwing down my useless shotgun and picking up her shotgun, which I think was an auto. Could be wrong, but I think it was an auto, which made it easier because I had 1 arm, which makes the story even more badass, at least in my character's eyes. He took down 3 people and captured a 4th with 1 arm. Pretty good for a day's work. But so now I had this chick as a hostage. And I think we eventually rounded up there was a decker helping them, and we caught him, and he was a hostage too. And so we take them across the street to my place, I think. Yeah, that was the easiest place to get to, so we just took them across the street. And we're trying to get as much information out of them as we can. Like, who did this, what's going on. Meanwhile, we have this other woman. And this woman is like, hey, I've got a job for you. If you want to take it, I need you to get back at this guy I've been having an affair with, who fired me because we were having an affair. We're like, how much does it pay? Well enough. And so we end up taking that job. And that job was one of the most... We basically had this super in-depth plan on how we were going to rob this guy and get all the information from him. Like, we were going to steal a boat, and we were going to get hang gliders, and we were going to get hang glider lessons. And it was the most unnecessarily extravagant plan. And what we ended up doing is we bought a pineapple, which was basically a device that you planted in the house, and any signal going through through an X area is redirected through the pineapple and then redirected to us, but also redirected to its original destination. Again, that's how it was explained to us. But we got this. So they go to place this in the house, and they decide to search the place. The funny story about how they got into the house in the first place is the decker hacked the building and basically streamed whatever was on one TV to every room in the house, or so I was told. So they come to the door, and this extremely embarrassed Mexican maid opens the door very slightly to the sounds of German dungeon porn being blared throughout the house. The term murder hobos describes our group very well. Because the shit we did was stupid. But they didn't murder the maid, thankfully. What they did is they urban danced their way in. One of them had a skill called urban dance, and he used that to get in the house. So Dr. Snacks, who also is there, goes in, and he goes up to the maid, and he's just sitting there talking to her. Just, yeah. So you like this? This is your kind of thing, isn't it? And he's an emotionless person. He's just a completely apathetic kind of character. What our Decker does, what Zero Cool does, is he goes upstairs, finds a safe. Opens up the safe, there's a crud stick and a crap ton of documents. He copies the documents, takes all the money off the crud stick, but makes it look like, oh, sorry, the money's still on there. And gets the fuck out of there. So we get all of the money, which I think resulted in 140,000 was how much money was on there. She told us that there was 100,000 on there, and she would give, and our personal cut would be 40% of that. So there was supposed to be 100,000 on there. So we took 40,000 for ourselves, gave her 100,000, which had 40,000 kicked back to us. No, it was 120,000 because we ended up with 60. So our group ended up with 60,000 out of this, and then we made some more money. We made some more money off of the documents that we stole. So we are now sitting great on cash. However, throughout this entire time, we have 2 hostages that are basically tied up and left for Cherry to deal with. We did lose one of them because I had a habit of yanking his cord. One of the guys we captured, I think I mentioned already, was a Decker. And so he would plug himself in to his cyberdeck. And I let this go a couple times. And I shouldn't have. But the first time, I needed to get his attention. And he went into Hot Sim, which is basically the full VR. And I needed his attention. But he was already in there. So the only way I could think to get his attention was yank the cord out of his head. Which is very bad to do. So I did it 3 more times for various other reasons. We think he dropped into a coma, but he eventually got out and sicked some bad people on us. But we still had the other person, the punk chick. So Ethan's character was effectively a paladin. My character was, at best, a chaotic neutral mage thief kind of thing. So, he was above and beyond the law. He was also the only person with a car. And I'm sitting there thinking, I need a way to get rid of this chick. We can't just drop her on her knees and blow her brains out, because my character, for one reason or another, just said that's not going to happen. This is where our prisoner dilemma actually shows up. I'm not going to drop her on her knees and blow her brains out. I feel wrong with that. The paladin is going to kick my ass and probably kill me if I do that. We need some solution to this, because I don't feel comfortable just letting her go. So I call up Cherry's father, Gregor, who is part of the Russian mob as a smuggler. What the Russian mob is one of the things the Russian mob is in is human trafficking. So I call up Gregor and I'm like, look, I've got this girl. I need her gone. I don't feel right killing her. If you just want to kill her, that's fine. Or you can sell her into slavery. I don't know. I just need your help. And he's like, okay, I'll come and I'll deal with it. I just need you to meet me at Club 66. Bring her with you. Club 66 is a strip club. So we show up. So I get the paladin, or Ethan is his name. I get Ethan, and we drive to the club. I don't tell him anything that's going on. I just say, hey, I'm gonna go take care of her, I'm gonna go take care of her. We need you to drive us this place. You're the only person with a car. So we drive there, and I get out. I force her out almost at gunpoint, and I was like, I look back at him. Please, because he starts getting out of the car. I'm like, please just stay here. Whatever you do, just please stay here. And he immediately knows. And this is a bit metagame. He immediately knows something is up. So he said, no, I'm not staying here. Something's wrong. I'm like, okay, fine. So he comes with us, and I can't talk him out of it. And we go into the bar, and we go up and meet Gregor. Now, my character and Gregor are Russians, or at least Russian-born, so we speak Russian. So I try to hold this entire business transaction of I'm selling this girl into slavery, probably to fight to her death in a gladiatorial pit. And I'm having this conversation with Gregor where I am doing my damnedest in Russian to get him to just take her off my hands and give me some money for it. That was how my character was thinking. And he eventually does agree that, okay, deal. I'll take her off your hands. I'll give you X amount of, I almost think it was like $2,000. Which I don't know if that's the running price for a gladiator. I don't wish to know anytime soon if that's the running price for a female gladiator, which is what he was intending to do with her. But that's Shadowrun for you. Everyone's a little bad. Ethan, in his metagamey self, basically bullshits his roles and his aspects and his skills. He does it legitimately. It's just a bit metagamey to say that he knew just enough Russian to piece together what we were saying. And I pointed this out to him this year, and he looked back on it and was like, shit, that was kind of a dick move because I used completely metagame knowledge to do that. He was going out of his way to kind of muck up the deal. And that's something about our group that bothers me. They will fuck each other in a heartbeat. So he basically, you're selling her into slavery? I will not stand for this. You can't do this. And that's where the fight starts. That's where the prisoner dilemma comes to a screeching halt. And what was supposed to be maybe a 10-20 minute negotiation between me and Gregor turns into a 3-hour discussion and negotiation between me, Gregor, and Ethan. Which, in the end, after 3 hours of going back and forth and arguing, resulted in Ethan giving me $2,000, Gregor giving Gregor $1,000, and he's going to go take this girl out back because she did slight him, but he's going to give her a gun, and they're going to have a fight. They're going to have a gunfight, which he is almost guaranteed to win because he is a phys ed. And that's about where it ended. That's where the prisoner dilemma ended. What happened at that point is because the Decker, who lives in Texas, he was bored. And he didn't like us having a 3-hour discussion on whether we should sell this chicken to slavery or not. And so what he did is he spent a fate point to say that there is a group of First Nation outside. First Nation, of course, are native. It was a native gang in Shadowrun. Ethan fought through the Indian Wars, or he was around it. He doesn't like natives. And so they see him. They don't like him for whatever reason. So he sees them, and a fight almost is about to start. For one reason or another, they don't like us. Or, no, I think it was, they see us, and they know the girl. For some reason, Revy is on my mind, but maybe that's just from I really hope he didn't use Black Lagoon's Revy as inspiration for this character. Because she ended up eating a knife. Or a bullet. Whatever. So he says there's First Nation out there, and they know the chick. And I spend a fate point to counter it, and they don't like her. They know her, but they are just fine watching us kill her because they don't like her. He counters with another fate point, saying they hate her so much that they are going to attack her and anyone around her. And this is where the fight starts. And we have a discussion out of game after this. And I point out how my character had nothing to do with the heist. My character just sat at home. Actually, he didn't even have a bike at that time. He was just sitting at home or doing basically nothing while these guys are going and making this and making a bunch of money for our group, which I have no problem with. And admittedly, the 3 hours didn't benefit anyone. But he put us in a situation which very upset me personally, where it appeared that we were gonna die. Me and Ethan were just going to be murdered by these 6, I think it ended up being 12 native guys. And it was revealed to us later that there was a spirit there. And we had a hell of a fight where I think I still maintained the highest kill score in the team, and just proved once again that I am the baddest motherfucker in Seattle, and basically became legends at this bar, and made Gregor immensely happy because he loves Bloodsport. He loves watching people die. From there, but I thought we were going to die, and we luckily came out of this thing. But it felt like such a petty thing when I had, as a player, had been sitting there, had sat for, I think it was 5 hours, 3 sessions, watching them do Decker and Face stuff, which is fine. I'm actually more interested now in social style games with a little bit of combat, or a properly mixed game, than just a pure combat game. But still, my character wasn't doing anything, so me as a player, I wasn't doing anything. And I like to be a team player. I don't want to screw anyone over. I've spent more fate points in games trying to save people or make the situation not as bad. Well, I've been screwed over time and time again by someone I think Ethan's player threw 3 fate points at me in an encounter once when it was 5 against 1 and he threw 3 more. Or something like that. It was a bad situation and it was made worse. So, that's digressing. So, the situation was... The situation was a bad one, and I felt kind of... I'll admit I got butthurt, because he made a situation where my character, who I was growing really attached to, could die, and I had nothing to do with it. Like, literally, it was just like, those people are going to die because this person screwed up your conversation. Which I hate, which pissed me off. So, so we eventually did win the fight. Luckily. Almost everyone came to our aid except the Decker. We did have one other job, collecting something for one of Dr. Snacks's contacts, some medicine thing. And that job went relatively well. I didn't get to see the end of it, unfortunately, because I had personal issues that night, and I had to take care of them. And that, unfortunately, ended up being our last session. Zero Cool's player in Texas couldn't play anymore, and I had started working on Alaska's North Slope, so I was working a rotational schedule, and I just couldn't be there every week, and the game just fell apart after that. But still one of my favorite games. I would love to go back to Shadowrun. I would love to go back to that setting. Because my character slowly developed throughout the game. When it started out, he was sort of this edgy teenager, and he evolved through gameplay and DM advisory to sort of this almost. I don't want to compare him to Deadpool. I don't want to at all. But he was this let's put that out of my mind and your mind. He's not Deadpool in any way, shape, or form. He was just this arrogant, cocky mage who did things his own way. Like that's what we developed. Is he used wild magic, because my character went and was like, I want to learn a spell, and we had just recently decided that I used wild magic, and so I have to learn things my own way. And the character was growing as the campaign. As I was getting a better grasp of who he was getting a better grasp of who he was. And like I created, like, because he was a biker, he didn't do magic the normal way. His components were bike parts, oil, washers, nuts, bolts, those kind of things. Chain link, bits of chain. And he spoke in a mixture of Russian, Elven, and Ebonics. And that's how he cast spells. He would just speak in a mixture of those to cast his spells. And it was one of my favorite characters. I feel like I only very briefly touched on the prisoner dilemma, which is why I did this whole episode. I wanted to talk about that, but I ended up just talking about Shadowrun. So I think I've been rambling for about an hour now, which is a good time to wrap up. So, in the end, Shadowrun's a great game. I love Shadowrun. Favorite system, or favorite setting. Fate is probably my favorite system. What I want to do next is I want to kind of diverge from my stories and talk about other things, just my opinion on stuff. So I'm going to try and do that next time. Again, if you guys have any advice, go ahead, leave it in the comments. I need advice, or I want advice. I probably do need it, but I'd love to hear feedback. If you guys have any good stories, if you want to correct me, tell me how much of an idiot I am for not knowing anything I'm talking about. Please do. It just makes things more interesting. I like discussions. I like people telling me I'm wrong and actually explaining to me why I'm wrong, so I can learn more. So until next time, guys, game on.